Welcome to the PlantFit Summit, bringing you the best in plant-based health and fitness. This is Luke and Toby, and today we have Geoff Palmer. Geoff is the CEO and founder of Clean Machine, an all-natural plant-based sports nutrition company. He has over 30 years of experience in the natural foods and supplements industry. Geoff is also a Masters Natural Physique champion. We start the conversation with Geoff sharing about the flawed medical system that currently exists. Enjoy the presentation.
It's unfortunate. I think our modern society has been very dependent on doctors having all the answers. And obviously the doctors make more money prescribing drugs. And it's part of the Standards of Care Act here, at least in the United States, where by law, the doctors have to tell you what the standard of care for drugs are. By law, they have to, or they can lose their license. So, that's a shame because it's pigeonholed them to not talk about health, not talk about nutrition. Now, I love seeing some of the vegan doctors out there really focusing more on health and nutrition and diet as part of that, but it really hasn't gravitated out to the mainstream. That and our hyperdependence on the drug is going to save us, and that's the only thing that will save us. And I think there's been so much focus on vaccine that we're not looking at the one thing that is clinically proven to kill the virus in about 99% of the people. And that's our own immune system. It does that. It's doing that all the time. So why aren't we looking there and how to help the only thing that we know that kills COVID? Is our immune system, and it's doing it every day. It's done it for millions of people already. Why is that not the first place we're looking? That's how dependent we've become on drugs, on pharmaceuticals, and on doctors who are also myopically hyper-focused on drugs and pharmaceuticals as being the only answer. And look, there's billions of dollars, probably even trillions of dollars to be gained from people who come up with a vaccine. So you understand the initiative there, but for God's sake, if we can help people now, let's talk about that now. In the very beginning, when this first came out, our government, the US government, even issued statements saying that there is no nutrition does not affect COVID virus at all. And now we know that's just poppycock. But that's where we were, and that's where we started out. And it's a shame because I think a lot of people who could have been taking nutritional intervention weren't, and may have cost lives. And that's sad. And that's why I'm shifted my focus from the business that I'm doing and really tried to get some of this information out there that is not being talked about out to more people.
I really love it, Geoff, and definitely I've watched a few of your videos, and you did share some research that I found really fascinating. What have you noticed in terms of these death rates, where thousands, hundreds of thousands?
And it is tragic, and my heart goes out. And look, I really do, in total respect for all of those who have lost loved ones or at risk of losing loved ones. Nothing I say, I hope, is intended to offend or disrespect anybody in that light. But when you look at the CDC data, their reports show about 94% of all the people who have died had at least one pre-existing condition. So when you take that number, it's about 18,000 deaths at the time of this recording of the video were not. Now, when you take into the fact that they know that in published human studies that there is a ACE2 mechanism that the virus can help attach. And there are drugs for diabetes, there are drugs for hypertension that increase those receptors and allow that virus to be even more potent and powerful and deadly. And they know that. And there's studies out there showing that. And you can go onto my Facebook page and you can actually read those studies for yourself. And one of those is Advil, ibuprofen. And in America, over 15,000 people are reported to take Advil. So, people are saying, yeah, but what about that other small percentage of healthy people that are doing it? Well, it may be the fact that they're one of those people that have a very low vitamin D status, or or are taking Advil or something like this that is contributing to that in lowering their immune system.
Where immune system is concerned, for those that don't really know what the immune system is, maybe you could expand on that.
The immune system is a very elaborate, complex system. I mean, there's macrophages, there's neutrophils, there's dendrites, there's natural killer cells, there's B cells and T cells. It's a very complex system because it's trying to defend against bacteria, against parasites, against viruses, and there's two parts of the immune system: the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system. And the innate is really your first call of action to try to kill the thing before it harms you. And our adaptive response is more, okay, now that we figured out how to kill it, how do we present the body so that it's safe and protected against the next round of viral infection? Basically, our immune response. And so it's a completely elaborate system, but there's a group of basically the ammo that the army men use, our immune system use. And one of the most powerful weapons it has in its arsenal is this peptide. They're called antimicrobial peptides, but to be honest, they're used against virus and microbes, bacteria, infections. And it's called cathelicidin. And I encourage people to go look up cathelicidin. So in my research of like, wow, cathelicidin, it actually binds directly to the virus. It actually eats away the envelope. Coronavirus is an enveloped virus. And then it actually injects it and disrupts it from replicating, so it can't make new proteins, make new baby viruses. So it can't spread, it can't multiply. And then it blocks it from actually being able to attach. So this one thing, cathelicidin, is doing like 6, 7 different things to make sure this virus doesn't take hold, doesn't bind for one, and then ends up destroying it, basically eats it from the outside in. And that's how our body kills the virus. But what is cathelicidin? Where does it come from? So our body produces a lot of our defense mechanisms in our gut. About 70 to 80% of our immune support system originates in our gut. And that's a really important piece, but cathelicidin itself is known to be upregulated by vitamin D3. Now, this will give you a correlation. So what are the main factors that we're seeing in deaths for people? One, northern climates, much more dense, like New York City. 2, people who are overweight. 3, people who are of color, darker skinned people, Hispanics and Blacks especially, 2 to 3 to 5 times the rate of other people, and elderly, and those with compromised immune systems. So when you look at all those factors, and when does most virus outbreaks happen? In the winter. What's the commonality to all of those things? In the winter, we have lower vitamin D. Because the curvature of the sun hitting the earth, it reflects or doesn't get in. Even if you're getting direct light in the winter, while it's a 35th parallel, you are not getting vitamin D conversion. It is little to zero, even if you're getting direct sunlight. That's why our vitamin D status, if you look at the graph on vitamin D, it starts out in the summer and drops to rock bottom and in the winter months and goes back up. And that's why viruses take hold, because vitamin D upregulates cathelicidin. Cathelicidin kills the virus. When you drop the D, you drop the cathelicidin, and the virus has nothing to kill it. It's as simple as that. Why fat people? Why people who are overweight and obese? Well, because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. So the fat soaks up the vitamin D. So they need 2 to 3 times as much vitamin D because it's not getting it. It's all sucked up into the fat and it's not being made available to produce the cathelicidin to kill the virus. What about Black people? Well, blacks and people with darker skin have more melanin in their skin. That's why it's darker. That's why the color is darker. And that's naturally a good thing because their cultures were traditionally out in a lot of sun and exposed to a lot of sun. And therefore, our body produces melanin to block the sunlight because otherwise we'd be producing too much vitamin D. But you take someone with a darker skin who is adapted to a lot of sun exposure and you put them inside in a workplace or inside in a home, and what happens? Now they need 3 to 5 to 6 times as much vitamin D to get them into healthy status. That's why we're seeing such a high rate of Black people and Hispanics dying from this, because again, that low vitamin D means it's bringing down the cathelicidin, and that's our defense system. That is what our body is using to kill the virus. You look at every single one of these factors. Old people, as you age, your body gets less ability to convert vitamin D3. So you need actually more vitamin D3 as you age. And of course, as you age, you see the death rates of COVID-19. Every single one of these can be correlated directly or indirectly with vitamin D status. It's really clear now, and the studies are showing it. I've posted over 15 studies showing across the board, not only for bacterial infections, but for virus infections too, how important vitamin D is for upping our regulation of cathelicidin, which actually kills the virus.
Well, I never thought of it that way. That's fascinating that you brought up the research about vitamin D. So where the general population is concerned, how much of the population is actually vitamin D deficient?
Actually, the vast majority of people are. So, and especially during the winter months, and especially during people above, Harvard University said it's about the 35th to 37th parallel on the map. If you look at any of the states that are above that, or any of the countries or cultures that are above that, if you look in India, they're below that line right now, and they have remarkably low, just a couple of hundred deaths so far, well, at least, I don't want to paraphrase, but very low on the scale compared to the people in northern climates, which their death rates are much higher. So that's why you're seeing such a remarkable difference, is because they're getting the exposure from the sun. Of course, cultures where you're spending a lot of time indoors, you're going to see that as well. Men, unfortunately, the death rates for men are much higher than death rates in women, and it's because unfortunately, men don't take vitamin D supplements by and large. Women take vitamin D supplements a lot more than men, and it's reflective in their death rates. And again, you're seeing these same patterns over and over, with D3 correlated with gender, with skin color, with body weight, with disease states. Once you have disease states, it impairs your body's ability to do that too as well. So all of these factors are all pointing to one thing. And I want to make this clear. This is not just the only problem in capability. There's lots of things, like certain prescription drugs, like Advil, that can cause effects to it. Obviously, getting access to care, if you're a poor person, that can affect. There's lots of causality to be spread around. But I'm looking at the major causes and what's common within all the death of all the people. That's where I think is a good starting place. At least let's cover the most amount of people. There are definitely other factors that play an important role in why people are unfortunately dying from COVID.
Sure. So 2 questions there. I think what came to mind was, firstly, I just find it really fascinating that you shared that females were supplementing versus males. And why is that, firstly? And secondly, the second question is, maybe we could go into some of the functions of vitamin D beyond immunity.
And I think it unfortunately has to do with men saying, I don't need that stuff. I can tough it out. I don't need to take no stinking supplements. I don't want to waste my money on it. It's an arrogant, ignorant approach by men. Has a lot to do probably with our testosterone and our cultural habits of being raised with, no, guys are tough. We don't need that stuff. And women are like, no, I'm going to do this because I want to protect my health. And, unfortunately, I think that's ingrained in our culture. And it's sad because guys are losing their lives over that stance. It's emotional, it's not logical, it's not rational, it's not scientific, but it is the case. A great study out of Ireland actually showed that women were 2 to 3 times more likely to be taking a vitamin D supplement. And of course, the correlation was that men were dying at about 2 to 3 times the rate of women. So there you go. It's like, I know there are people who say, oh, I'm going to do this all natural. I don't believe in taking supplements, blah, blah, blah. I respect that. But look, if you could die from it, and the science is there saying it, for God's sakes, until you can find yourself getting out in the sun. And be honest with yourself, because your body doesn't know you're lying. It doesn't care if you're lying. Oh, I get plenty of sun. No, you don't. You would need to get 30 minutes of sun at least 3 times a week in a direct sunlight over about 2/3 of your body. That means stripping down to your shorts for a male or a bikini for a woman. Are you going to go out in the midday while you're working and in bikini and do 30 minutes of direct sunlight exposure over 2/3 of your body? Come on, be honest with yourself. If you're not doing that, for God's sake, it's cheap, it's available, and protect yourself from it's death. You guys, there's no turning back. There's no, oh, shoot, I should have taken the vitamin D. Too bad, I'm dead already.
Where vitamin D is concerned, what is the recommended, based on your research, what's the recommended daily allowance or intake?
So the recommended intakes are all over the board, and I think that's something you should discuss with your doctor. But most of the research I've been looking at, now again, remember, people who are overweight are going to need more because that vitamin D is fat soluble, so it's being sucked up. People who are Hispanic or Black, you're going to need to take higher dosages because to get yourself into optimal levels. Obviously, the best thing you can do is get yourself tested for your vitamin D status and then ask your practitioner, how do I get that level up as quickly as possible? Time is of the essence in this case. So if you're trying to do it more quickly, you're also going to need a higher dose of D to try to get you back into optimal states. So most of the research, though, on average, taking out the fact of, for a normal Caucasian male, let's just say, I don't want to say normal, an average. It's not normal. Just because I'm Caucasian and male, it's not normal. Forgive me for saying that. But the average white male will need about 2,000, based on the research, 2,000 IUs to get back into optimal state in a shorter distance of time. Maintenance for those that are already in an optimal state can be as little as 400 IUs. So it really depends on where you're at currently, what you may need because of your body weight and because of your skin color or your melanin levels. Those factors play an important role about deciding with your practitioner how much to take to get you into an optimal state sooner.
Oh, great. That's a good deep dive into vitamin D. So now I want to kind of backtrack a little bit to what you said earlier about gut health. I think that's very, very important because the gut function is tied with the immune system. So how can we actually foster a healthy gut to build a robust immune system?
Yeah, absolutely. There are 2 things that are big under research, which is the one that is being carried out very commonly through the research is butyrates upregulating cathelicidin as well. So there are 2 things, vitamin D3 and butyrates. Where do butyrates come from? Butyrates are produced by our microbiome, by our probiotics, our gut flora, when they consume fiber. Okay, where does fiber come from? Plants, only plants. That's no animal product on the planet contains fiber. So unless you're eating the stomach of an animal that has grass in it, and then you're getting a little fiber, but no, plants are the ones that produce fiber. So the microbiome actually digests the fiber and creates what they call postbiotics or metabolites created by that, which are butyrates. And butyrates have a dual helpful function. The first one is upregulating cathelicidin, so the cathelicidin can kill the virus. The second is butyrates have been shown to lower the inflammatory state. So here's a problem with the virus. So the virus comes and attacks. Then our body sends cytokines there and creates an inflammatory response, and it signals everything to come over and help kill the stuff. But in that inflammation, if there's more and more cytokines being delivered, it creates an over-inflammatory state. Now that inflammation can cause the lungs to fill with fluid, and this is how a lot of people are actually dying from pneumonia or the lung-based things, is their lungs are filling with fluid. They're basically drowning to death. It's a horrible, horrible death. And that's why they feel like they can't breathe, because their lungs are actually technically filling with fluids caused by the over-inflammatory state. So our body needs to create the inflammation so that the cell signaling can be there to get our army men to go over there and kill the virus. But we need to bring down that inflammation as quickly as possible so it actually doesn't damage our healthy tissues, or even worse, cause death, because we can actually die from our own inflammatory response. Now, there's a new study that just came out, and I'm sharing it for the first time right here, right now, that is preliminary research, and I want to make that clear, but we should be really listening to all this preliminary research, because whatever we can do that will give us clues may end up saving lives. So let's talk about that. They looked at when we potentially take something like an antibiotic. It can wipe out our gut flora. Okay, we now know when a virus enters our system, our microbiome, our bacteria, send signals to our immune system. Hey, you've got a pathogen here, and here's what you need to kill it. And it actually starts chewing up the fiber and producing metabolites that will help our body produce the immunity factors, antimicrobial peptides that kill the virus. Without that conversation going on between those microbes that are living in this, our body doesn't. So unfortunately, this was an animal study, it was done on mice. I do not support animal research, but if we can learn from this, at least let's respect the animal's life that has lost their lives by hopefully saving other animals, human animals' lives with this. Okay, so they knocked out the microbiome in the mice. They introduced the virus, and there was no response whatsoever, none. And the virus killed the animals. So they reintroduced it as well, but then they allowed the microbiome to come back, but only afterwards. Well, the innate response attacked the virus, right? And then these other dendritic cells actually come over and grab pieces of the dead virus, the destroyed virus, and make antigens, which is little pieces of peptides to say, okay, if you see this peptide, then you'll know that virus is present. They're called antigens that help our body recognize that peptide next time we come, and we go and attack it. And that's usually a really great thing. But when you've got a lot of those dead ones around and there's no proper cell signaling from the microbes, our body says, oh, that must be a bacteria, our antigens sitting on our own healthy immune cells, our dendritic cells, and starts attacking our own immune system. That's basically what an autoimmune disease response is. And this is attacking our system. Now, when you look at the children right now who have COVID, before it was thought, hey, wait a minute, children don't get COVID at all. The incidence was 0. Well, right now they're having what is called multi-system inflammatory syndrome, where their whole body just comes filled with inflammation and it crushes them. It basically can kill them, stops their heart. So why is that? Why are they getting it so late? Now, this is just a theory, but I'm going to put it out there because if there's any doctors or physicians or practitioners or researchers out there, I'd love your feedback on this. But if a child out there with a runny nose or gets a cold or whatever, goes to the doctor, they give him antibiotics, wipes out its microbiome, and then the virus comes into their body, well, normally their body breaks it down and creates a bunch of antigens. Well, if it just keeps coming in because it doesn't have any microbiomes signaling properly, talking to our immune system, then it starts attacking all these antigens all over the body and causing this massive state of inflammation, which is what we're seeing with MSIS, which is the systemic inflammatory syndrome in children. So I'm wondering, oh my God, is it because we're giving these children antibiotics that is wiping out their microbiome, and now their microbiome is not signaling, not talking to our immune system, and our immune system is just causing this massive inflammatory response because it's flying blind. It doesn't know what it should be attacking. So, there's some really good research out there like this that should be looked at a little deeper to see what is it we're doing that could possibly making this virus much more lethal than it needs to be, especially when we're talking about children. We have over 200 people in the United States, children in the United States, with MSIS right now, this inflammatory syndrome right now, and several deaths already. So, if we can get this information out and possibly recognize, look at these children, have they been on antibiotics recently? And is there a correlation there? I mean, we could end up saving children's lives. It's that kind of research that I really just try to want to get out there. Not to be right or not to take credit for anything, but really, if we can save some lives, let's have this discussion at least. Even if I'm wrong, let's take a look at this. I don't care, because their lives are much more important than being right or wrong about this,
So, with that in mind, I understand that antibiotics actually kill the good bacteria and really kills everything. So how does food, or I would say specifically animal protein, contribute to bad bacteria or maybe even a bile environment?
So I want to clarify good and bad bacteria. There are pathogenic bacteria, and then there are bacteria that may not be pathogenic, may not actually cause disease states directly, but can crowd out. Look, we have 40 trillion microbes living just in our intestinal tract. That's not including our skin and everywhere else that are living. And over 400 different strains of bacteria, yeast, molds, all living inside our gut. So I don't like the word good and bad. Let's just say helpful and not so helpful. And what happens is when you consume an animal product, there are different microbes that break down animal flesh. Just like there are different enzymes that break down animal flesh than enzymes that break down plant tissues. There are different microbes that are really good at breaking down animal flesh, and there are different microbes that are good at breaking down fiber. Now, the vast majority of our good, and I'll just use that phrase because that's the way most people look at it, are fiber and polyphenol and carbohydrate ingesting bacteria. The bacteria that basically consume animal products. Now, temporarily, if we were just to eat one piece of meat like every once in a blue moon, those bacteria would bloom, would break down the meat, and then would die down to a very small population again. And then they wouldn't produce nasty things like TMAO. TMAO is a byproduct of bacteria breaking down specifically animal proteins through carnitine and choline in that combination, and only happens if you are a meat-eating person. It does not happen. TMAO is not produced in vegans or people on a purely plant-based diet. So it is those specific proteins that are broken down by those microbes and then producing TMAO. TMAO, for those of you who don't know, has actually been linked to heart attacks and strokes, and is now a very serious risk factor for causing fatalities in human beings. So something to take very seriously. But you look at them and they produce byproducts like cadaverines and stuff like this. And where do we get that word? Out of cadavers, right? Because we saw the human body being decomposed by these bacteria. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're decomposing a dead body inside of your body. It is rotting flesh, literally. That is what's happening. That is bacteria that would normally, when you see an animal on the side of the road and it's rotting, those same bacteria can be inside your gut if you put that meat inside your gut. That's what they do. They break down animal tissue. And normally you kind of want that because you want those nutrients to be broken down and released. But clearly, like with the incidence of TMO and lots of other things, that can create a very negative environment as opposed to butyrates, which are broken down by our bacteria that are actually helpful to our immune system. So by eating the animal products, you actually can lower the immune system. And by eating the fiber, which creates butyrates, can actually be beneficial to our immune system, even directly upregulating capsaicin to kill the viruses and bacteria.
I really want to go into what you shared just briefly about consuming just one piece of steak, because maybe not everyone's ready to jump in and go 100% plant-based, 100% vegan. They might want to have a meat dish once a day, once a week. How does the microbiome actually shift and based on even just one meal?
Research used to think, these shifts in the microbiome must take a long time and stuff, but actually they don't. Just one single meal can cause a marked shift in the microbiome. Also, exercise, by the way. The just new study out recently showed that people who exercise have a much more complex microbiome. And that's what you really want. You want a rich microbiome with lots of different bacteria that specialize in producing different metabolites that can be very beneficial to us. So the more richly complex you have, usually the healthier state of the diet. And by eating a more plant-based diet, we see a much larger diversity, biodiversity of our microbiome. When you eat animal products, it rapidly changes, even in a single meal, rapidly changes, reduces the total number. Okay, so bile is part of the reason. Bile is secreted by our liver to help us digest certain foods that are difficult to break down in meat and animal products more so. So when you have a bile environment, that can kill off many of the quote unquote good bacteria and leave it room for only bile bacteria, bacteria that can survive in a bile environment. And those are usually can be somewhat pathogenic bacteria. So what you're doing every time you eat meat is making more room for the bad guys to live and less room for the good guys to live. So a rule of thumb, there was an interesting study on leukocytes. So leukocytes are white blood cells, or think of them as your garbage men in your bloodstream. So if you eat a junky diet, you're going to have a lot of junk going into your bloodstream from your digestion, and then our body secretes a bunch of white blood cells to try to go engulf those things, because they can be dangerous to our tissues. So white blood cell count will shoot up when you eat a meat-based diet in your bloodstream. And then you look at a plant-based diet, and the leukocytes or white blood cells drop to a really low count. I've had people say, "Oh, my doctor says my white blood cell count is too low." And I'm like, what? The white blood cell count is an indicator of how toxic your body is. Why would you want a higher white blood cell count? And they said, "Oh, because it's the immune system." I was like, yes, but that's your immune system reacting to a toxic body. That should not be the case. What you want is a really low white blood cell count, indicating there's not a lot of crap in your system that it has to fight. And it's just amazing to me that the total misunderstanding based on, this is where we should be at high white blood cell counts, because all they've ever looked at is the standard American diet blood. And it's full of white blood cells. Why? Because it's full of garbage in the bloodstream. So, it's just all these norms based on standard American diet that the doctors have been programmed, seen, patient after patient. Oh, well, that's normal. No, it's not normal. No, it's not healthy. That is a sick body. Just because you're used to seeing it and all the studies have been done on patients with sick bodies doesn't mean that's normal or healthy or natural. It's just not optimal. And I hate all the research that was based on that. The omega-3 research, oh my God, don't get me started on that. That was based on standard American diet again, which is fish eaters. And I just did a whole video on why preformed EPA and DHA is not only as good as plant-based omega-3, it's actually better, and that preformed EPA and DHA, like from fish or even algae, can actually be detrimental to the body. Now, there are a few exceptions. If your body is unable to convert very well, if you're not producing the enzymes and you have a genetic flaw, yes, there's a definite reason for people to be taking preformed EPA and DHA because their body can't do that for genetics, but that's a fraction of a percent. For the vast majority of people, plants are the best source of omega-3. And if you want more information on that, check out my omega-3 study. It'll blow you away. All the research on omega-3 was done on the standard American diet, so they just assumed that was it. So what basically is going on there, when you take preformed EPA and DHA, our body says, oh, I must have made that. I must have converted that already. So I'm going to turn off this gene, epigenetics. I'm going to switch off this gene that triggers my body to produce all the enzymes that would convert more. So we've even shown that if you introduce DHA, that our body stops the enzymes that would convert all the way down to DHA, and EPA starts to pile up in the bloodstream. From the preformed DHA, the body is saying, whoa, stop converting anymore. So it turns off all the enzymes. Remember, there's actually 6 different omega-3s. It goes ALA to SDA to ETA to EPA to DPA, then to DHA. Each one of those omega-3 metabolites is important to our overall health. If you're only putting in 2 of those, EPA and DHA, you're missing the whole rest of the spectrum. They've shown that EPA is down here, and if you go ALA, SDA, and ETA, the 3 omega-3s that go before this, if you're only taking EPA and DHA, which are lower on the scale, you're not getting any. They've measured the blood, 0 levels of ALA, SDA, and ETA. So is that important? Yes. So they looked at, okay, so where is that found? It's found in the brain. And they found that the highest levels of ALA, SDA, and ETA had the highest levels of intelligence, had the highest levels of brain memory even later in life, even had the higher levels of gray matter, physical brain matter, gray matter, higher amounts. And that's how important those are. And remember, you're taking the EPA, it only down converts to DHA. There is no back conversion. There's a great new study out showing the unidirectional conversion of ALA to SDA to ETA to EPA, DPA, and the DHA. If you're starting right in the middle, you're not getting the first 3 at all. And they improve our brain health. They may increase brain longevity. So, all this research on EPA and DHA and only focused on that could actually be detrimental to our overall health. We can have worse brain function by the time we're in our 70s and 80s because of this. And again, plants provide the ALA and the SDA. Ahi flower is a particular plant that I've got in our product, is the highest in ALA and SDA of any plant in the world. That's why I was so excited to bring it out, why it won the Best Supplement of the Year award, is because I want to find these plants that nobody is talking about, but the research says these are the best and healthiest for us to take. And look, nobody was consuming ahi flower, so it's not like, and people say, oh, I want to eat it as a whole food. Okay, well, it's called stone seed, technically, is its proper name. If you bit down on the seed, it would break your teeth. That's how strong it is. And that's why nature had protected it, and it had become really effective at producing its high levels of ALA, SDA. And again, if this is going to improve brain function, allow our brains to last longer through life, why would you not do this? Why would you not want to consume the highest? Remember, flax, this is clinically proven, 400% more effective than flax, higher than chia, higher than hemp, higher than all of them. Flax and chia don't have any SDA in at all, 0. So based on the research, there are really amazing plants out there that are just not getting to the mainstream consumer. And I'm trying to get some of these incredible plants, make them available to people. Obviously, you can't eat the whole seed yourself, like flaxseed or chia. It has to be broken open and the oil extracted in order for us to enjoy the benefits. But now we have the technology to do so.
I'm a big fan of ahi flower, so I'm actually fortunately I help delivers it to Singapore, so I do take your ahi flower. So I err on the side of caution where omega 3s are concerned and with ahi flower, but I know within the plant-based world there is conflicting information. One side, medical professionals or some doctors may say no, you can get it all from 2 tablespoons of flax. On the other side, there are doctors say do supplement with omega-3, of course, from algae sources, ahi flower. So what has your research shown?
Yeah, so remember what I just talked about is algae actually mimics fish oil. And of course, they thought, oh, that's great, because that's what everybody's taking, fish oil. So you have a vegan version of fish oil. What I'm saying is algae has preformed EPA and DHA. Instead of getting the unformed versions, which is ALA and SDA, which is found in other plants, algae can be just as bad at only producing those two, EPA and DHA. So you're not getting any of the ALA, SDA, or ETA. You're not getting that when you take algae. I will never take algae oil, even as I've been a vegan for 35 years. I've never taken it, and I never will. And I'm glad I haven't, because it can actually inhibit our body's ability to have those other omega-3s that our body needs to function properly.
So in saying that, are you suggesting that people should actually supplement firstly, or not just rely on whole foods for omega-3 sources?
No, and again, just like the vitamin D3 status, I think you can get omega-3 definitely from plants and from whole foods. There's no doubt about it. But you do have to be vigilant about it, especially since, probably there are some reports out there showing about 90% of Americans are insufficient in omega-3. Okay, so 10% of you are actually out there doing it right. and of that 10%, probably less than 1% are actually vegan. So that's a really small number who actually have appropriate omega-3 levels. So be honest with yourself. Go get your levels tested. And if it's not, up your intake. If you want to do it by food until you get to that. But don't lie to yourself saying, I'm getting enough because the doctor says so. Get it tested. Find out for yourself. Let the facts speak for themselves. Let the test results tell you where your omega-3 status is. And if you're not, don't risk your health over a dogma of, no, I'm going to do this with food only, and I'm like, okay, I respect that if you want to get as much as you can. I'm a whole food plant-based guy myself. So, but let's talk about what supplements are. All right. So most people think of supplements as this evil industry that is out to rip you off and lie to you and is selling stuff that your body doesn't need. And yeah, I got it. And some of that is true, and there's reason to be that, because there are bad players in every industry, whether you sell cars or clothing or supplements. There are bad players everywhere. But supplements are just like what the word says. It's to supplement to a healthy diet. It's to ensure that you get optimal levels so that your body functions optimally and healthy in its base state. Now, if you're an athlete, your body may need higher levels of nutrients because of your turnover. Same with protein, but same with all your micronutrients and your macronutrients. So just be honest with yourself. If you're not going to do the testing, at least, try to look it up online, through some of these macro calculators and nutrient calculators, and see if you really are hitting the status. Don't lie to yourself and saying, yeah, I'm getting enough. I do 2 teaspoons of flax or whatever. I've been talking to some people who's like, yeah, I've been doing chia. I heard chia is the best of all. And I said, oh, do you grind your chia? And they're like, no, I eat it whole because it tastes good that way. And I said, you realize that's giving you 0 omega-3s, right? None. Nothing. He goes, I've been doing this for 5 years thinking I'm getting tons of omega-3 and I'm getting nothing. That's right. Published human studies show eating whole chia, swallowing it, passes completely through the digestive tract, unbroken down. That's why it gels. It forms a nice gelatinous layer around chia. That's what chia pudding, right? I see all the people eating chia pudding and I'm like, oh, great. It's nice, might taste well, but you're getting no omega-3s out of that unless you're chewing it very well. But chances are you're still swallowing about 80% of it and chewing about 20% of it. So again, just by saying, oh, it says on the package, I'm getting 1,000 omega-3s through my chia, unless you're grinding your chia and grinding your flax will also pass through the digestive tract completely whole and untarnished. It's a nice mechanism by the plant so that you poop it out and the seed can grow in a nice bed of fertilizer if you are an animal out in nature. So just be honest with yourself. Get your blood levels checked, and just because it says you're getting X on the package does not mean that you're getting X inside the body. So pay attention to that and at least be honest with yourself. Adjust your diet appropriately if need, and if not, if it's just not feasible, then there are supplements out there. Yeah, clearly. Be discerning, choose a good supplement company that is reputable, that is high integrity, that has research behind it showing its efficacy. There are good players and bad players, so you just got to be careful with that too. But here's some supplements. Do you know what the #1 most used supplement in the world is?
What would that be?
Salt, table salt. It's sodium. It's a mineral supplement. And if you use Himalayan salt, it's actually a multi-mineral supplement. I'll name another supplement for you. People call isolated protein, right, a supplement. Well, isolated fat is called oil. So olive oil is a supplement. All right. Okay. So supplements in many bottles, like Tub Block 80 behind me has 3 different herbs in it. Okay, they're dried herbs that are crushed and put into a capsule. But if you put them in a little shaker, they're called parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. So those are all supplements. They're herbal supplements. How about tea and coffee? Those are herbal supplements. So if you have a pasta with salt in it, 3 spices, and some olive oil on your bread, and some tea and coffee, you've just had about 10 different supplements. But most people wouldn't look at it that way. Most people don't see that. I hear people like, no, I'm not going to do protein powders, and because that's isolated protein is bad for you. I eat tofu. Well, tofu is an isolated protein. It's isolated soy. All the fiber and almost all the carbohydrates have been removed. It's isolated protein. Oh, I eat seitan. Well, seitan is isolated wheat protein. It's got all the fiber removed from it, and most of the carbohydrates. It's 80% protein, just like 80% protein in the bottle is. There is no difference between tofu, seitan, and protein powder. If you're eating those, you're eating the same isolated proteins. Just one's from wheat, one's from soy, and one's from pea and rice. And in our case, 60% of our protein is made from the whole plant. So you're actually getting more whole food by eating our protein powder than you would seitan or tofu. So, I wish people would get beyond the dogma of, no, that's bad and evil. And so many, unfortunately, of the vegan doctors are out there really trying to demonize the supplement industry. And not looking at the individual products themselves and saying, does that product have value? Is it helpful? Like, or 60%, I'm trying to change people away from using isolated proteins so that they get a 60%, whole food supplement made out of lentin. And we use the whole plant, the flower, the stem, the root, everything, the leaves, it's all in there. The only plant in the world so far to be identified in being sold in the marketplace as containing naturally occurring bioactive B12. And that's amazing. That's the only plant commercially available right now with natural, and it's really cool. The plant, actually, it's a water plant. It soaks up the bacteria. The bacteria live inside the plant and produce B12. So when you harvest the plant, you're actually getting B12 produced by the bacteria living inside of the plant. That's amazing. I mean, B12 from plants, we're breaking all the norms, that you can't get nutrition. Great new study on vitamin K. Oh my God, I can't wait to get this one out. I'll be talking more about this, but in a nutshell, basically they thought, oh, plants have vitamin K1 and the conversion to vitamin K2 is really poor. Again, all the studies on that poor conversion rate was done on people on a standard American diet. They found now that on a purely plant-based diet, on a vegan diet, our microbiome shifts so much that it upregulates the amount of bacteria that convert vitamin K into K2. Now, plants have tons of vitamin K. There's over 1,100% of the RDA of vitamin K in lentil. 1,100%. That's 11 times the requirement in a single serving of that. And because my bacteria in my gut have changed and raised the amount of bacteria that actually convert that, I have higher amounts of vitamin K2 than somebody who is on a meat-based diet. They used to say, oh, you have to get your omega-3 from fish oil. Now we know that's absolutely false. Oh, that you can't get B12 from a plant. Now we know that's absolutely false. And I haven't in both of those. And again, with this vitamin K, oh, you can't get, because there's poor conversion rate. Wrong, there's poor conversion rate in meat eaters. And if you are a meat eater, yes, you may actually need to take K2. Or if you don't want to take a supplement, change to a plant-based diet and you'll get all the K2 that your body needs. So I just love when science blows away these myths that you can't on a plant-based diet. Not only can you do it better than on a plant-based diet than what they thought we can. And what we're seeing is that you can't on a bad diet. When you compromise your gut, your microbiome, of course it's not going to do its job as well. And that's what we're seeing. It's the animal-based diet that is causing a detriment in our doing. It's the animal-based fish oil that causes our body to shut down the enzymes. It's not that we don't produce the enzymes. No, you don't produce those enzymes. I produce tons of those enzymes because I'm vegan. And it's only when they finally looked at vegans in the study and included vegans, and they found, whoa, vegans had a higher DHA level in women? How is that possible? They're consuming less DHA because our conversion rate is so much higher than those that are eating preformed fish oil. That's amazing. To me, it's exciting. Look, when I changed vegan 35 years ago, in my heart of hearts, I knew this is right. I know this is right. We don't need this. There are cultures that have never eaten meat. There are humans that have never eaten a single animal product and thrived and lived into their hundreds. So I know it's not necessary. But when all these questions and all these comments, all these gotcha questions, but where do you get your protein? Where do you get your vitamin K2? Where do you get your omega-3s? Where do you get your B12? And now the research is just saying, wow, turn the whole conversation. I knew we were right, but I've spent the last 35 years of my life digging through this research to try to find this information to say, see, I told you all wrong, right? Look, no offense to anybody out there who is not vegan. I know there's lots of non-vegetarians and non-vegans out there. What I'm saying is you can live a fulfilled, healthy, happy life on a vegan diet. So there's no reason to fear that you're not getting the nutrition that you need. Do you need to be careful? Yes, we all do, whether you're a vegetarian or omnivore. Doesn't matter. We all need to take a look at our nutrition and make sure we're getting the proper nutrient levels. And that's both macronutrient and micronutrient.
For the person that's listening out there, whether they're vegan, vegetarian, or even non-vegan, what's the one thing or one nugget of wisdom that you can share with them to improve their lives, take control of their lives while creating a positive impact in the world?
Yeah, so there's a real common pathway. you listen to the USDA and the food pyramid that you got in the schools. They tell you to eat the standard American diet with meat and eggs and dairy. And then your body can handle it for a while. But after a while, it starts to break down. And it's not because of age. These things, these disease states don't come with age. They come because you've been doing something that is harming your body for a long period of time. That's when your body starts breaking down. That's when you're seeing these disease states. So they tell you to eat this way because the packaged food companies, the 11 packaged food companies that account for 80% of the products out there, are making a lot of money off of you eating their products. And they want you to continue. So they load it with fat, sugar, and salt to make you want even more, because these are things that create our body to crave even more, to overconsume. So then you get fat and sick and disease states. And then the doctor steps in and says, oh, I'm the only one you can go to. Don't listen to nutrition people. Don't listen to the supplement people. I'm the one with all your power. So out of fear, we surrender our power then from the USDA over to, or the big food companies, the agriculture and food companies, and then we give our power over to the doctors. Oh yes, you are the new, you have all the answers. Only you, I can only trust you because you're a doctor, and then they say, oh well, you have to take the drugs. And then you surrender your power and your energy over to the drug companies, and they make you even more sick by giving you drugs that harm your body. They give you drugs that actually quiet the symptoms and don't treat the causes, because the cause is the food, the food you're eating. So then you go further down the path and you say, well, how can I afford the doctors and the pharmaceutical companies? Well, I have to give my money over to the insurance companies. So the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the doctors, the big food companies, they're all making money off of you being sick. They're all telling you, don't listen to anybody else. You have to listen to us, while they are keeping you on the path of getting sick, taking away your power, taking away all your money. The food company takes your money. The doctors take your money. The pharmaceutical companies take your money. The insurance companies take your money, and then the nursing homes take your money, and then of course the funeral homes take your money. So they're all out to get your money, but they all benefit off of you getting sick. Why are you surrendering your power over to somebody who is profiting from you getting sick? They say, oh, but Geoff, you're a sales guy for a supplement company. And sorry, but my products actually improve your health. That's what they're there for, so that you maintain and keep a healthy body. It would be great. Look, if you can do this with all food, awesome. I applaud you. I want you to do that. You do not have to go down this path of disempowerment and surrendering all your energy, get older, fatter, sicker, and die and suffer from disease states. You don't have to choose that path. I am 57 years of age and no wrinkles, right? That's a 57-year-old arm, and that's not having worked out for the last 4 weeks because of the COVID lockdown. And I'm still this healthy. Why? Because proper nutrition and exercise. It's really simple, folks. You can have your life, live it. I have 0 doctor visits in the last 10 years. I have no insurance. I don't carry it, never have. My insurance is my nutrition. It's my food. It's my exercise. It's my positive attitude. This is an empowered state. You have control. You choose what goes in this mouth,
I love it, Geoff. That's incredibly inspiring. And having met you face to face, you're the real deal, my friend.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on and giving me an opportunity to speak to your audience. Thank you for all the work you're doing in this movement and being an inspiration to others. Your wife, your child are just shining examples of health and fitness. And, let's just keep inspiring, keep empowering people to choose the path of health. It's an amazing ride when you're on it. And it's so much fun when you get to share it and pay it forward to others too as well.
We hope you've enjoyed this presentation. A wise man once said, "You make a new life by making new choices." Now, if you know that what you eat matters, if you know that health comes from healthy living, then the time to make new choices is now. And just imagine owning the summit for life. Click the button for more. Maybe you know our stories. Luke and I lost family to cancer, and we wish we would have known sooner what you are learning here today. So please, share the summit, take action, and let's support each other. Thank you. This is Toby and Luke signing off, and we can't wait to see you for the next presentation.